Afternoon, everybody. Good morning, good evening, whatever time you're watching the video. I've been talking a little bit about artificial intelligence and automation in a number of videos, and mostly I try to talk about books and creative things, but let's talk about this AI stuff for a minute. There's a lot of people going, oh, it's no big deal. It makes mistakes. It's not perfect yet. Don't have a threat. We don't have to worry. So let's lump together what industry is calling AI. And really, when they talk AI, we're talking automation and artificial intelligence. It may not actually be AI, and most industry just lumps it together. But why does it matter so much today, and why aren't we looking in the right places to understand exactly what it's going to do to us? Well, let's talk about what that means for a minute. So AI, if you think back just at like 2019, start of the pandemic, we can all remember the start of the pandemic. um it was nowhere. It was nowhere. Nobody realized you were using it on occasion, but you didn't realize you were using it. If you went and saw the latest Marvel movies, some of the special effects were actually, and some AI code was involved in that. In fact, all the Avengers movies forward had AI involved in some fashion, probably all the way back to Captain America. But anyway, it's not new, right? But it is the changes in it have accelerated greatly. Along with that, the cost of automating things has come way down. So you now got this sort of perfect storm where AI is working with automation to make these things kind of come into our lives even faster. And it's showing up in a few ways. And I'm going to touch on one that there's a few YouTube videos out there that talk about, and then they make fun of it. I was driving through a drive-through with the kids one day, and we figured out that the drive-through was actually taking our order with some voice recognition software. And then instantly everybody's like, oh, it won't take those jobs. Well, there's 100,000+ people that work in drive-throughs across the country, probably more than that. So of course instantly some YouTubers jump out and start, oh, let's go off and start shouting gibberish at the machine and see if we can confuse it. Sure, you can, but you can also confuse the human with that same gibberish. So sure, you got the machine, funny, but you would have gotten the human too. But that's not the stuff I care about. What jobs is it really coming for? This AI automation mix that's kind of coming on, and how soon is it coming? Um, and why does that really matter? Well, if you look at just about anybody's numbers, and I've looked at mine because I work in predictive analytics, which is part of artificial intelligence. um, it can impact, if you lump AI and automation together, in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years, something like 30 to 60% of the employees in the world, whether that's all here in the United States or spread around, is depends on which numbers you look at. But let's take the low end and say it's 30% here in the United States. One third, 33 out of 10 people lose their job thanks to AI or automation. Somebody's going to go, haha, we'll gain new jobs at other places, not in the same quantity. There's going to be a much lower quantity of them, because I could tell you right now, from the side I'm on, I could do far more today with the software and the engineering side with a very small staff than I could just 10 years ago with a much larger staff. So it's not going to be what you think. There's just not going to be the same one-for-one job replacement. So we go automate a job at a fast food restaurant or someplace else, and we're not creating another one at an AI company. It's not one for one. But what jobs are most likely to be impacted? And it's not artists, it's not AI generated books. That stuff is out there, but that's not the stuff that's really coming for those jobs. That's not included in those numbers. So these are numbers are outside of that. What are the top 10 things that this stuff might be coming for? And I looked it up, and I looked at a bunch of different people's numbers, but essentially University of Oxford was the one I kind of liked the best. And the top 10 they came up with were telemarketers, thing of the past, going to be gone. Title examiners. This is people during real estate transactions to go off and examine titles. Completely automated, thing of the past. Maybe 1 in 10 survives. Abstractors, people that do title searches, all those gone. People that do hand repairs or examinations of sewers, gone, in favor of automation and robotics. Mathematical technicians. What do I mean by that? What the heck is that, right? Doesn't make any sense. A lot of times on engineering projects or science projects or research projects, you'll employ mathematicians to go back and check a bunch of stuff. Well, don't need it. We're going to automate it with AI. And actually, it's already being done. I use computers much more than I use another person to check my work because they're faster and cheaper and far more accurate. Insurance underwriters. Think of the past. Computers are going to do all that work. You just plug some numbers and go do it. And that one, I was like, really, is that really how it's going to work? So I started talking to some people, and a friend of mine who is an insurance underwriter says, yeah, I sit in my office for 40 hours a week, but realistically, I probably only work 5 of those because the computers do the rest. And that's today. So, how long before that becomes a job of the past and one person who is willing to work 40, is willing to bust their ass 40, 50 hours a week just takes clients from everybody else. So insurance underwriters, not going to be what it is today. It's not going to be as safe as it is today. This one surprised me, and then I dug into it. But watch repair, somebody who does watch repair, they're in every town. People who replace batteries, people who replace the crystal. Somebody who does all this stuff going to become a thing of the past. Cargo and freight agents, people who work with cargo, people who pull things out of Amazon factories, people who move boxes from one spot to another, all going to be replaced. Tax preparers. This one I actually found kind of cute. Um, I was like, really? Are we really going to replace tax preparers? And the reason I thought that was 15 years ago, I made the stupid mistake of trying to get involved in politics for once because I thought, hey, let's go solve some actual problems, right? Instead of engineering problems, let's go fix stuff people want. And it turned out that the political parties in power don't give a shit about solving actual problems because I had a couple of real solutions for things. And one of those was let's have a flat tax from, 0% on one end to a higher number on the other end, but just eliminate all deductions, just forget all that crap. You only pay income tax at a flat rate. We don't have this 1,000+ page tax code with 60,000 loopholes for you to jump through. The only people who really get to jump through those loopholes are the people who can afford high-end accountants, right? So I was like, let's just have a flat tax. And what I was told by some very senior politicians was really funny was we can't do that because you'd put a lot of accountants out of work. Okay, so the government can't change the rule, and that's cool. Private sector is going to fix that anyway, right? So all those people are going out of work anyway. Photographic process workers, Adobe's kind of beaten that market to death. And if there's any of that left now, it may not be that much of it, but those are kind of going away too. You might lump the clip art group into that, but new accounts clerks. So somebody calls up to a company to try to sign up for a new account. Don't need a clerk for that anymore. Going to automate that process. Those are the top 10. Do you see artists on there anywhere? Maybe you can make an argument for photogenic process workers, but that's not really the case. What that really means is when I go take a picture, who edits it, who kind of, does that brush up on it. Well, now we've got apps that do all that. You don't have to hire somebody for it. So that's the top 10. All right, why does that matter, right? Because none of that is art, none of that is writing, none of that is the stuff that everybody loves to argue about. And why does it really, really, really matter? Well, right now here today in the United States, something like 41.2% of our gross domestic product is government spending. 40%. I did a bunch of numbers and came up with 41.2. I picked through a bunch of budgets and came up with that. I did some searches on other people who have run those numbers, and they come up with anywhere between 36.2 and 47%. 47% of our gross domestic product is government spending. That's a big number. And where does that number tip over? And where do we stop borrowing? We're not taxing at that rate, right? I mean, anyway, so if that number becomes super crazy large, the only employer left is the government. Where do they get their money? Unless they're printing it and creating it or borrowing it, they get it from people who work outside the government, not inside the government. But that's getting dangerously close to a weird tipping point. All right, so where does that really leave us? So if we got 30 to 60% of people unemployed potentially in 3 to 5 years, we've got 78% of the United States right now today in 2024 lives paycheck to paycheck. That's up 6% from last year. That's a huge number if you're putting 30 to 60% of people out of work. 28% of the United States has less than $1,000 in savings, 1 in 4, give or take. A little bit less than that. 29% has less than $5,000 in savings. Only 11% of the United States has $10,000 in savings or more. So what happens if you have a major medical problem, lose your job, rent keeps going up, all that kind of stuff? And why does that really matter? Well, a few weeks ago, I did a video about housing cost increases. And what's that look like today? Well, back in 1973, you could buy the standard home, the average home in the United States was 1.3 times the average income in the United States. In 2022, sorry, the average home was 11.3 times the average income in the United States. And the homes are going up. Recently, they've started coming down a little bit because interest rates went up, which means your payment goes up. But income hasn't really adjusted all that much. And all those numbers were adjusted for inflation. So, I used Federal Reserve numbers and adjusted them all to 2022 dollars to do those calculations, but all adjusted for inflation, all the same math. You go from 1.3 to 11.3 to 1 on housing costs. Rent costs, we don't even need to talk about the rent crisis, right? So um, you're going to put 30% of the country out of work. 78% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck, and that includes families that have dual income. Um, AI, the threat's not artwork. The threat's not what's it going to write. The threat is economic. Um, and more importantly, AI is just a way of making it so that people have more leisure time because we're finally getting to a point as a society where we can produce more than we need with far fewer labor hours. And before somebody comes ask me and goes, well, we'll just ban it. We've got to stop this. It's evil. I hear that all the time. Where it's like, oh, we just got to knock it off. Automation is evil. One person told me we should just make it illegal to fire people, which I thought was kind of silly. But let's go to the tape, as they say, and look at how long this has been going on, because replacing people with machines ain't new, right? So this is a vintage bun divider machine. What happens is you stick a giant pile of dough in here. It doesn't take you long to put that together. You stick it in there, turn the machine on, and this is old, right? This is old school stuff. Turn it on, do that, let it go for a second. Next thing, oh, not quite finished. Let it go for a second. Next thing you know, everything's all nice and divided. How many people would it have taken to do that? And how long would it have taken those people to do? We've been automating shit for years, right? That's not going to change. What automation does is it allows people to have more leisure time. The trouble we have is nobody's making enough money to really live in the society we've crafted. So what do we do when that tipping point comes and those people that live paycheck to paycheck need to go find a job and there's not one? They all go find a government stream of income. They all find a government job. Well, we're already pretty close to government spending being over 50% of the economy, which is a weird ass place to be. Um, and what happens when those people go on unemployment and collect benefits and, oh, universal basic income? Okay, great. Well, where's that money come from? Somebody with a modern monetary theory is going to tell me, oh, we can just print it. Okay, so we're essentially admitting to ourselves that the US dollar is now the rough equivalent of monopoly money. Somebody else that says, you don't understand modern monetary theory. Yeah, as long as the US dollar is the international basis for exchange, sure, that has a value. The moment that changes, where does it go? May not change, but if it ever does, we have one leg left on that stool to keep it propped up. Is anybody comfortable with just a one-legged stool? I know I'm not. So that to me is the problem with AI. It's not the stuff we've been arguing over. It's not art. It's not writing. It's not all that other stuff. It's not Skynet. That's the problem. And that's the problem nobody's talking about. And that is the one I think we really should be focused on. Everybody have a great weekend.